Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. One Democrat said that Biden's spending bill cannot be funded by corporate tax and the wealthy alone. Biden's infrastructure bill finally passed the House. Texas passed 8 amendments to the state constitution, reverting to more traditional values. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. Representative Conor Lamb, a moderate Democrat from Pennsylvania, who is preparing to run for the Senate, recently gave a surprising but clear understanding of President Joe Biden's reconciliation spending bill. Unlike most Democrats, he has not proposed and will not vote for a tax increase on the middle class. In fact, this year, he voted for the biggest middle-class tax cut in a generation. Lamb noted that the White House tried to claim that the Build Back Better agenda would be funded by wealthy Americans and corporations paying their fair share. In reality, though, contributions from wealthy Americans are not enough, and a flat tax would not work at the federal level because it would not raise enough money to fund the agenda. The combined cost of everything the Democratic administration proposes to do far exceeds what the billionaires would actually have to pay. That's why certain moderate Democrats were hesitant to vote for the bill last Friday. Lamb made another point about the realistic cost of those proposed items. The Democrats' tax and spending bid will require tax increases that far exceed what the billionaires actually pay. So in effect, it becomes inevitable that Democrats will raise taxes on the middle class. During the campaign, Biden often claimed that he would not raise taxes on people earning less than $400,000. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki recently clarified that this applies to households and not individual income. So don't take politicians' promises at face value. Yet it is not enough that Americans of all income levels will suffer the cost of severe inflation as a result of the agenda. Ordinary Americans will eventually have to pay corporate taxes too. Higher corporate taxes mean less net income for companies. When companies have less after-tax income, their stock prices can get softer. Since over 50% of American households own stock, either directly or through pension plans, falling stock prices reduce household wealth. Lowering earnings for a business could also mean lower wages. According to one study, the net effect of Biden's campaign promises of tax increases would be a 3 to 4% reduction in real wages and real income. New jobs will also be affected in the construction and consumer durable production sectors, which are partly dependent on business investment. Higher corporate taxes put U.S. exporters at a distinct disadvantage in international competition. It may also further reduce corporate income, stock prices, employment levels, and wages. It could even prompt some companies to shift profits overseas. Finally, if possible, companies will raise prices and reduce the real wages of those who buy their products. It is worth noting that a federal tax rate of 28% plus state taxes would give us a combined corporate tax rate of over 32%, very significantly higher than the global average of 23.79%. 8 bills proposed by Texas lawmakers are amendments to the state constitution were passed on Tuesday, including a bill that would prohibit the government from restricting religious practices in the event of an emergency such as an epidemic. 2 of them were enacted to explicitly address COVID-19 outbreak restrictions. Proposition 3, which passed with 62% of the vote in favor, amends Article 1 of the Texas Constitution and adds a new provision that prohibits the state government or any agency of the state from enacting any law that prohibits or restricts the practice of religion, including events held in churches and other places of worship. Republican State Senator Donna Campbell said in April, when restrictions were imposed on the church, it crossed the line between what we could do, which is buy groceries, and what we could not do, which is worship and how we want to worship. Republican Texas House Representative Scott Sanford said, churches provide essential spiritual, mental, and physical support in times of crisis. He continued, closing churches not only eliminate these critical ministries and services, but it violated their religious freedom guaranteed by our laws and Constitution. Proposition 6 was also created in response to pandemic restrictions. It allows residents of nursing homes and other long-term care facilities to designate one essential caregiver who will not be barred from visits. The bill passed with 88% support. Other amendments include Proposition 1, which would allow charitable raffles at rodeos, and Proposition 2, authorizes counties to issue bonds to fund infrastructure projects. Proposition 7 would limit school district property taxes for surviving spouses of people with disabilities older than 65 who has died. And Proposition 8 would expand the eligibility of residential homestead property tax exemptions. Democrats had to vote separately on two bills that they had originally attempted to bundle together in order to save the Biden administration's faltering domestic agenda. After a day of negotiations, the House passed the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill on Friday, November 5th, by a vote of 228 to 206, and sent it to President Biden to sign into law. Shortly before the bill passed, Democrats had suffered a historic election defeat, losing the Virginia governor's race. It was seen as a bellwether for the midterm elections. A Republican gain of 5 seats in the midterms would give them back control of the House, leaving Biden, and the chances of success in pushing the controversial bill during his presidency would be even lower. The successful passage of this infrastructure investment plan is therefore a rare ray of hope for Biden at a time of internal and external difficulties. After all, a series of setbacks such as the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, the illegal refugees crisis at the southern border, mandatory vaccinations, high inflation, a supply chain crisis, and a sluggish economy have moreover caused support for Biden's economic policies to plummet from 60% at the beginning of the year to 41%. The bill calls for a massive increase of investment in infrastructure development, stating that about $550 billion in new investment will be made over 5 years to build roads, bridges, ports, and other transportation infrastructure. 13 Republican House members voted in favor of the bill, but it did not have the support of all Democrats, with 6 ultimately voting against the measure. In September, the Senate passed the bill in a rare 69-30 landslide, but the bill was blocked in the House due to factional differences within the Democratic Party. For Biden's bill, while much of the focus has been on the divide between progressives and moderate Democrats who have battled over the bipartisan bill and the separate Build Back Better Act, Friday's vote also appeared to expose a split with the Republican Party. Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert called the 13 rhinos. Texas Representative Chip Roy said the Democratic Socialists lied to the American people about what was in it and what it really cost. Bipartisan lawmakers in Congress are proposing new bills to stop larger tech companies from buying up potential competitors. The Platform Competition and Opportunity Act, introduced by Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Minnesota Democrat and chair of the Senate Antitrust Committee, and Tom Cotton, an Arkansas Republican, would stop large tech companies such as Amazon, Facebook, and Google from acquiring small competitors unless the companies can prove that the proposed acquisition would not remove a competitor or potential competitor from the market. Big tech firms have bought up rivals to crush their competition, expand their monopolistic market share, and to harm working Americans. That's bad for America, Cotton said in a statement. Under this bill, the largest tech monopolies will have the burden of proving that further acquisitions are lawful and good for the American people. The House version, introduced in June, authored by Democratic Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, has cleared the House Judiciary Committee and is expected to be voted on by the full chamber in the coming months. The legislation would determine that certain acquisitions by large technology platforms with market capitalization of more than $600 billion, such as Facebook or Google, violate antitrust laws. Big tech companies with monopolies have shamelessly gobbled up hundreds of potential competitors, such as Facebook's acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp. And the Federal Trade Commission is currently suing Facebook for this acquisition, which it believes was made with the intent to nip potential competitors in the bud. Facebook has used its data advantage to create superior market intelligence to identify those nascent threatening competition and then acquire, copy, or kill those new companies. The bill will crack down on one of the main strategies used by big tech companies to cement their dominance: mergers and acquisitions. The Senate version of the bill would give the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission stronger powers to block dominant platforms from making acquisitions that could enhance their monopoly power. The bill would also shift the burden of proof to tech giants to prove that a merger is not anti-competitive and can be approved by the government. The House Antitrust Commission had already passed 6 comprehensive antitrust bills in June aimed at reining in the monopolistic practices of these tech giants. The panel had previously been investigating anti-competitive behavior by big tech for over a year. And coming up, why and how the traditional family unit is being destroyed. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like this video and share it across all your social media. Also double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. And click the bell so that you can always be notified every time we post a new video. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support. Okay, let's get back to the show. The first objective of the Marxist far left, socialists and communists, was to erode and ultimately destroy the power and loyalty of the family unit to its members. Any independent organization that does not fully subjugate itself to the party is an enemy to be eliminated. One of the goals of Marxism is to bring everyone into one communal organization, including family members. Two-parent families are already rare among African Americans, leading to children's poor academic performance, high gang membership, high rates of incarceration, and horrific rates of violent murder among African American youth. In 2020, there were about 10.24 million black families living in the United States. Of those, 4.5 million had a single mom as head of the family, and single dad families made up 1.23 million. Nazi Germany and the communist countries of the Soviet Union and the CCP all worked hard to undermine family loyalty and encouraged family members to rat on each other. Schools taught children to censor their parents and report to the authorities any anti-party comments they heard. Feminism introduced the Marxist concept of class struggle into the family, devaluing men, marriage, motherhood, and the family with the right to be able to freely kill unborn children. Under its influence, many women chose not to marry, and single women decided to have their own children, creating single-parent families. But child rearing is increasingly being placed in the hands of child care facilities and government authorities, depriving parents of rearing their own children. Throughout history, the two-parent family has dominated. That is, at least until the first half of the 20th century. The traditional family was the basic productive unit in society. Children provided the necessary manpower to carry out labor-intensive tasks in rural settings. Education officials at all levels of government and teachers' unions plot together to take control of children's minds and purposefully keep parents in the dark about what's going on at school. They push their far-left agenda with no oversight. They introduce any policy they choose, like CRT, or encouraging young children to transition to the opposite sex. The children in some schools are actually told not to tell their parents what's going on. The policies they put forth and the intimidation they use can be considered child abuse. These officials also connive with friendly state and federal administrations, such as the Biden administration. The purpose of this plotting is to separate the children from their parents, making them reliant on the state. This is a primary step in destroying the family and making the government omnipotent, paving the way for socialism and communism. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.